FluoRender tutorials. Mode combinations for visualization settings. In this video, we systematically study the different modes in FluoRender's visualization settings. The modes include MIP, Alpha, Color Map, XYZ Color Map, Shading, and Depth Attenuation. These settings can all be turned on or off using FluoRender's user interface. The on-off settings of these modes have a total of 64 combinations. We demonstrate each valid combination and show how to use them using a single channel of a sample dataset. When all modes are off, the dataset is rendered like a box. Using the clipping planes to examine it slice by slice is recommended. Turning on the depth attenuation is doable. However, the result is not helpful. This combination is not recommended. Similarly, adding shading to the flat rendering is not helpful. Adding both shading and depth attenuation is not recommended too. XYZ Map means mapping the dataset's XYZ coordinates to colors. This mode is only available when the Color Map mode is turned on. Only applying Color Map to the flat rendering is useful. Using clipping planes is recommended. Similar to the non-color map rendering, applying depth attenuation or shading, or both, is not recommended. The next combination sets the dataset's color based on voxels XYZ coordinates. We only demonstrate the Z mapping here. The result is not useful and not recommended. Adding depth attenuation or shading, or both, is not helpful and not recommended as well. Next, we only turn on the maximum intensity projection, or MIP, mode. MIP can generate meaningful 3D renderings without an alpha setting. Adding depth attenuation to MIP is available. Adding shading to the MIP result also enhances 3D shape perception. Adding both shading and depth attenuation in MIP mode is available and effective. Next, the combinations that only have the XYZ map are not available because the color map mode needs to be turned on. Turning on a color map mode maps intensity values to colors. The MIP plus color map combination is useful because high-intensity structures are easily visible. However, depth attenuation becomes unavailable for color map MIP. This is mostly due to the implementation. Shape enhancement can be achieved by adding the shading effect. In the meanwhile, depth attenuation can be added to the shading effect in this new combination. In MIP mode, colors can also be used to represent XYZ coordinate information, which is enabled by setting an XYZ mapping mode. Similar to the standard color map MIP mode, depth attenuation alone becomes unavailable due to implementation limitations. This is remedied by allowing the shading mode, or shading plus depth attenuation mode. So far, we have visited 32 combinations, all with the alpha turned off. When the alpha mode is turned on, the result is known as the most commonly used volume rendering mode. From here, we show the remaining mode combinations. Adding depth attenuation enhances the depth perception. Adding shading effect enhances shape perception. And these two modes can be combined. Similar to previous combinations, turning on the XYZ mapping mode only does not change the visualization. We need to turn on the color map mode first and then choose a mapping method. Turning on the color map mode maps intensity values to colors. Adding depth attenuation enhances the depth perception. Adding shading effect enhances shape perception. And both effects can be added together. The color map mode can be configured to map XYZ coordinates to colors. This allows us to see the Z depth of particular structures. Similar to previous combinations, both depth attenuation and shading effects can be added in any combination for perception enhancement. Next, we turn on only the MIP mode with the alpha setting. Adding alpha to MIP attenuates the low-intensity signals. This is also the default MIP setting. Depth attenuation can be added. Shading is rendered as an overlay when it is turned on. And there is no problem of turning both shading and depth attenuation on in the MIP mode. Similar to previous combinations, XYZ mapping is unavailable because color map needs to be on first. We turn on the color map. By default, intensity values are mapped to colors. High-intensity structures can be seen clearly in this combination. Also similar to previous combinations, when MIP is on, depth attenuation is unavailable by itself, but can be used along with shading. We can also change the color map mode from intensity to XYZ coordinates. Structures at different Z sections are colored differently. Display of structures is also prioritized for high intensity too. The depth attenuation and shading settings work similarly to previously shown combinations. The mode combinations of alpha plus MIP plus color map plus XYZ map may be useful to visualize structures in a complex dataset. In conclusion, FluoRender provides a plethora of mode combinations for visualization settings. The choice of a mode combination may depend on the data to be visualized. You can always experiment with these different combinations to find one that best serves your visualization needs.